You already know. It's on pop. You already know. You already know. It's on and popping tonight. The buzz is in. I'm just saying, this is crazy right here. This is Spirits fever right here. With that being said, I like to thank y'all. I like to welcome y'all to the Big Down. This your man Bobby Hill. Hope y'all had a great weekend. Hope y'all made it back. Excuse me. Hope y'all made it back here. Make it back to the next week, to the next grind. The grind continues. It's hard out here. Trying to make it. You try to find pieces of little pockets of joy and comfort and everything. You try to hold on to it. Some people, that's what these birds are, a little pocket of joy in this crazy world out here. You know, man, I hope everybody had a good weekend. Hope they had a good morning. Hope they made it back to work okay. Kids made it back to school. I know it's some it's around time. School's about to let out. Graduation time, college graduation, high school graduation. See them everywhere. See all the I think UTSA. I was out there. I seen the graduates out here taking pictures by the. I don't know if they was graduating then. They're probably just taking the cap and gown pictures, taking them out by their logo in front of the school. Saw the parents being proud. Everything is good. Good feeling. Good feeling. I'm glad to see that and everything. I'll tell you one thing: once they get out of there, boy, this damn world gonna put something on you. This day and age, but there's a lot going on out here, man. This world puts something on you. It's good to have a good support system, have a good family, support system, whoever that may be. It could be your family, it could be your friends, it could be whoever. Just have a support system out here because you need it out here in this world. It's crazy out here. You know, I told my wife I was going to talk about it today. Big shout out to my wife every time I do it. I told her, you know, it's Sandra Yvette Hill. She's the reason why I'm here. She's my backbone. She's my rock. She you know keeps me motivated to keep trying to advance what I'm trying to do. Trying to keep my spirit up. Because there be times that you don't want to do it. She helps me out, and I say I want to do it. When times where I might be trying to overdo it, she was like, "Babe, chill. Relax for today. Do it tomorrow." So she keeps me balanced and very important in my life. Like I said, it's good to have a rock out here. You need somebody out here, man. It's hard out here because mental health is a very real thing. And I told my wife I was going to discuss a little bit today about it. And this is very serious mental health. We got to make sure take care of ourselves mentally. You know, got to balance this stuff out. Don't overindulge in all this stuff, whether it be, it don't matter, politics, if it don't, religion, or, sports, just overindulge in stuff, man. You got to have this balance, man. You got to give your brain balance. You got to feed your brain multiple things. Stop, overindulging in stuff, man. I think over time, I think it messes with you mentally because it narrows your view on this world. Okay, you're so focused on one or two things instead of being a well-rounded individual. Being a well-rounded individual, you learn how to do things. You learn how to do different things. You're giving your brain exercise. Like I said, brain. You think of a brain as like a muscle, and how do you get a muscle strong, or how a muscle have endurance? You exercise, you work it out, and that's what you got to do mentally, man. You got to challenge yourself. As long as you out here and as long as you here and alive, You should be able to challenge yourself mentally. Help yourself be stronger. Don't let yourself, be consumed with all this, madness and evil and, trickery and, you know, player hater, player hating holleration, in this dancery. We don't need any of that. We just need, we need is I'm trying to think of what to say because I try to, be careful because everybody go through a lot of things. Mental health is a very broad subject, and you don't, you can't just put it in one like category. Like you can't, a lot of things can, attribute to mental health. And you want to be able to, talk about things, be flexible without, being, you know, acting like you don't like you're not concerned with it. You have to be able to talk to people on multiple, platforms or multiple plateaus about as far as with mental health, because some of it could be simple, some of it can be real complex. Some of it could be, somebody mental health could be affected by something that's going on right now or something that went on back, when they were younger and stuff. So you got to deal with a lot of stuff. And then, like I said, dealing listen to all this, society, how, the news media, the internet is telling you how, every day it tells you how bad the world is. It never tells you how good the world is. It always tells you how bad the world is. Sometimes, no, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it tell you how good the world is, but trust me, there for every 20 stories about how doomed we are, there may be one story of hope. That's probably about how it does. So I mean, it could stress you out mentally, man. Mentally, it could have you out here thinking that that you're a nobody, that you're just insignificant, stuff like that. And you have to fight this. You have to fight those impulses. You have to, you have to tell yourself that you're not what society says you are, or you're not what your family says you are. You're better than that. You're better than all this criticism and all this, all these jokes or all these and just vile things. It could be racist, could be sexist, could be misogynist. It could be a lot of things. It ain't just one thing. Because mental health, yeah, that problem mentally can come from a lot of things. It could come from, the external, world out here outside of your home. It could be society, could be school, could be your job, could be whatever, or it could be inside of your home. You know, could be family, could be abuse, could be expectations. Could be just whatever. So there's a lot of things that attribute to it. So and throughout, and especially I can only speak through my neighborhood because that's the only. I mean, that's where I spend a lot of time. I didn't spend a lot of time and I had white friends. I had had Mexican friends. I had everything, but I didn't spend more time in black neighborhood than anything. So black families and stuff. So I only can speak from that perspective, like with the most knowledge. Well, what I say is that we have to, as us, we have to do better as far as discussing people's mental health and stop dismissing stuff and stop just calling people crazy or stop just stop just pushing people aside and not being afraid for maybe your own reasons because you're afraid your family might be embarrassed or you're afraid you might be embarrassed or whatever. To discuss stuff, man. People need to talk about stuff, whether They might have a learning disability, might be dyslexic or something like that, stuff that you need to talk about, stuff that you would never know unless you open up a dialogue instead of you know, just everybody just walking past the subject. And every time it's there, like I said, feel like an elephant in the room, man. It's there, but you don't want to talk about it because you feel like you might hurt somebody's feelings. Because you got this person thinking because maybe they think differently, or maybe because they are different, that they might not be as good as everybody else, so they might shy away from it and don't want to talk about it. You know, and you as an adult, you don't want to talk about it because maybe you don't know how to talk about it, or you're afraid you might be embarrass the person or hurt the person, hurt their feelings and stuff. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, man, that we need to break through and just, have an open dialogue and just talk about it. Because, you break the ice, you never know. You never know. It might not be as bad as you think, The person that you feel like need help may won't help just as bad as you want to help them. So you won't know that unless you open up a dialogue, you know? You know? What's up with my man Louis Jenkins? How you doing, my brother? I see you. I see you in a few weeks, man. I'm going up on his Yeah, I'm trying to think about because I'm trying it's interesting. I'm trying to figure this out because excuse me for 1 second. I'm thinking about I need to because right now I'm just on YouTube. I'm trying to figure out how to get out, and I need to want to do like have different multiple platforms for with Spotify, Apple Music, all the places that that does the streaming and stuff. So I'm still trying to figure out won't trying to figure out how to have other people on my show. Have how they stream and stuff like that. I'm trying to figure this out. So you know, roll me, Lou. I'm trying to because I want y'all to sit here and cut it up with me. So we sit and talk about what we talk about because check him out. Let's talk about it. He's on all the streaming platforms. He's doing his thing. Louis Jenkins is my man. So I'm looking forward to being on his show on June the 6th. And like I said, I'm trying to figure out my thing. I'm gonna have him on. Like I said, we can sit here and sit up here and we're gonna cut it up. Like I said, we talk about like the things about in our community, what we talk about. Like I said, I'm talking about the the mental health. Like I said, we need to do better as far as discussing this, getting people help early. Stop letting them live a life thinking something is wrong with them, and all they need is just a little bit of a little bit of treatment, a little bit of. They ain't talking about no damn pill either, nothing like that. They just need somebody in the corner that say, "Yo, I understand what you're going through. I'm here to help you." So yeah, so we need to like I said, we need to do better at you know discussing discussing the hard things. It's easy to talk about. It's easy to talk about the good stuff. It's easy to talk about all the accomplishment, all the things that are good. Make the hard. We got to have the hard conversations. We got to let people know that you're okay. I'm here. I'm your rock. You can lean on me. You can trust me and stuff like that. I know it's hard to deal with trust because there's just so much deception out here in this world today, and it's hard to let your guards down to trust anything now because you never know. Anything might, anything. Check your phone. How many spam texts you get a day? Because it's everybody here trying to get something. Everybody here is desperate out here. People out here trying to get money. You know, they're out here trying to take it. They trying to take it. They trying to take it from you. Trying to scam from you. It's out here. That's why you got to be vigilant. You got to keep your eyes open. You know, and like I said, when thinking about all that, that could be stressful too. That could deal with your mental health, man. Having to sit up there and keep that, you got to keep your head on the swivel at all time and just, look for, just look out for anything, man, because you never know. You never know. You know, over the past 30 years, think of how many, tragic things have happened out here to people just living their ordinary, everyday life. You know, do you think about it? And that stuff could that stuff could affect you mentally too. It's hard out here. Man, it's hard. It's hard and it can be good at the same time. But it has good moments. But it's hard. It is real, real hard. And I like, you know, like I say I try to find like little bits and pieces of, hope out here that, I can look to and feel good about feel good about society as a whole. Because like I said, every day we hearing the worst of society. What's going on? What's going on that's bad and stuff. Or we don't hear stuff that's universally good. We might hear things that's good from a political perspective, from a that from whatever agenda, like whatever stations up there, they might show stuff that's good from that standpoint, but stuff that's universally good, they don't they can't make money when everybody feels good. That's why when Obama was elected, the hope that swept across the country, they had to get rid of that real quick because it was affecting their bottom line. We need people scared again. So yeah, but like I said, even with all this stuff, man, it can affect you mentally. It can affect you mentally, and I don't, like I said, I can't say like I can't tell you the answer. Everybody the answer. I can't tell you one answer that's going to help everybody because, like I said, everybody got different. Everybody got different problems. Everybody got different, avenues that they're having a problem with. All I can say is, one thing. If could say something that could have helped everybody, just you have find somebody to talk to. Find somebody to talk to, man. Do not battle this by yourself because it's not going to help. You cannot, you know, trying to do things on your own all the time, though it may be honorable, though it may be like, you doing it because that's who you are on the inside. You used to stepping up doing stuff on your own. Just because you can do that don't mean it's always the right thing to do. And with mental health, going at it alone is never the right thing to do. Find somebody to talk to, either in your circle or if you have to go outside of your circle, find somebody to talk to because you cannot deal with this on your own. Many people try to and have tragic results. Try to find somebody, try to find, like I said, it could be a stranger. It could be a stranger, somebody you never talked to, somebody you don't even know. Sometimes that might be better because you feel like you can open up to somebody you never known that don't know you. Than somebody that's familiar with you that might know everything about you. It might be hard to open up to a vulnerable subject as this. So find somebody because trust me, that'll help. You know, they can find if they don't have the answers. I best believe that they can find somebody with the answers. So like I said, talk to somebody. Don't try to deal with this on your own because it'll consume you, and you'll be doing more harm than good. You know. I was saying about some the good things in life. I did say something today. Me and my wife, we out here. Like I said, we doing the DoorDash stuff, and we be out here. There be times where we going in the grocery store shopping, so we be in HEB. So today there was a couple. They had to be like in their 60s, so about 60s or 70s. Hell, they was getting it. There was a teamwork in here doing DoorDash. They was doing the shopping. Shopping through there, and you can see on their phone what he has that they doing DoorDash, and they were very nice, man. He was sweating. He was getting it. The old couple that was getting it. And my wife looked at him and said, "That's gonna be us, and they're gonna be us with that age." Yeah, I bet that was because it ain't because just but it ain't to me it's not the DoorDash. It's not that. It's the fact that that's how out here shopping together. You get to go like the different places and go walk around, and you go shop for other people. You go deliver. It's nice, but if you got someone special, to go out here and do it with them. You get a chance to bond. You get a chance to know. You get a chance to know what people. Put it this way, you get a chance to be introduced to new things. You might see something that that might pique your interest that you never know before, like a food or a season or anything. Somebody might order something like, damn, I never knew they had that, and you might be turned on to something. So there's a few benefits from it, So it's not just the money. So and I love it. Like I said, I love the experience of just going out, seeing San Antonio, man, seeing, I see all the good places. I know I cannot confirm or deny if I ever deliver to anybody with on the Spurs. I can't confirm it. I can't deny it. I've been to places that look like they could be occupied by somebody in the professional ranks of basketball, but I can't confirm or deny it. You know, but it's nice out there. That's all I can say about it. It's nice out there. Like I said, and it's good. Like so, we get to go out here. We go out to go out to the neighborhoods and just you get this. It's up in the hills, so you get to see like the overview of the city of San Antonio, which is beautiful. It reminds me of you see in the movies all the time. They always show the scene whenever you see Los Angeles, like they showed you up in the hills, and they showed the plains, the whole and you can see all the sea of lights out here, like LA. It's good to see. You can see that like that with San Antonio back in the hills to an extent. It's not like it's not as massive as Los Angeles, but it's there. It's a lot of it there. Oh man, Ant Live, what's up, my brother? What's good with you, my brother? Hope everything good with you, man. I was thinking about Chill Will the other day, man. I was still thinking about. It's always made me laugh because it always does. I was up, that was in Western Salem, and we were, we were just going out. We went out to this bar. It was I don't know if it was a country bar, but it was inhabited by at least 80% or probably about 85 to 90% of, of Caucasians. And we was we was just drinking, drinking and enjoying ourselves. We wasn't doing, nothing crazy or nothing. But then they started doing karaoke, Ant was chill. Ant ain't mess around. He was just chilling. He's on the low, so he ain't messing around. So me and Chill, we sitting laughing around. We went up there. We put our name up there to go on karaoke. So and there was no and you think about I'm just tell you how the club what the makeup of the club was. So imagine what type of music there was. So if they had any music that that I'm familiar with, they had a few. It was a very slim picking. So we picked one, and it was Bump and Grind, by Mr. Robert Kelly, and it was and that was fun. That was crazy. We was up there. It was funny. And by the end of it, we couldn't, oh my God, it was terrible. And what was so funny was by the end of the song, the damn dance floor was full. And the funniest part was at the very end of the song, at the very end of the song, R. Kelly is like begging, like, he was like, I don't see, I don't see. And she looked at me and said, I don't see it either. And walked off the stage. But yeah, that was one. Yeah, I was thinking about that, man. That's one of my good memories with Willie Mayer, man, passed away. My man Chip Ant, a lot of brother, man. Willie Mayer, man, he was like my big brother, man. I just miss him. Sometimes I just think about times we experienced together. So from time to time, I might bring something up. In the show, in a later show, I think I talked about it before about when we was up there chilling with Tim Duncan, Randolph Childress, my man Banks, Scooter Banks, So yeah, just want to get that moment. One love, and live, chill well, rest in peace, my man. You know, and and my man Ant, that's another. He's another one, man. He dealing with, he lost his brother, man. Him and his brother grew up, and it was just him and his brother. They live, I don't want to go into their life or how, growing up, but let's say they were just them two. They had to lean on each other. That's all they had, them two. They had friends, they had everybody, but when it come down to it, it was just them two, you know. And then, when we got older and stuff, like, from Clinton, they was up in Western Salem, and I was up there chilling. I've been stayed up there for a little bit, and I've been up there chilling with them, and they, it was them. They were like that, Ant and Chill. You know, they leaned on each other. They looked out for each other. You know, every time they talk shit about each other, but they loved each other. And they wouldn't let nobody come. They'll talk shit about each other, but you don't come out there. You don't talk junk about them. They ain't gonna let no outsider, nobody else talk about them. They ain't gonna let nobody else mess with them, man. They were like that, man. So and like I said, and his big brother passed away, a while ago, and he tells me every day, man, it's a struggle every day. He loves his brother, man, and he misses his brother. So dealing with that, mental health, man, that's I was helping him. I used to give him a call, but like, look, I know how, I feel you, man. I miss Chill too, man. First time after his brother died, I called him and said, look, I just called and see if you're okay, cuz I know how you feel. I know what he meant to you, man. I was just calling to see if you were okay. And he told me, like, man, that meant the world to me, man, because people don't know what I'm dealing with mentally because, I miss my brother and I love him. So that, I was glad I was able to be there for him, man, help brother out, man, because I'm telling you, man, mental health, man, especially with loss, dealing with loss of a loved one, loss of a close one in your life, man, that's, just imagine how that can have a bearing on your mind, your body, your soul, so like I said, and I try to talk to him. We're talking every single day, but living life and stuff, things, we got lives to live and stuff. So we don't talk every single day that we used to, but we still talk a few times a week, every time we talk, every time we pick up the phone, my brother. But yeah, that's damn right. Yes. May 27th. Man, chill damn well. Yes. And I will be giving a shout out then too, man. Just, like I said, man, just us, man, we got to be there for each other. Like I said, ain't nobody, you know, like you see, if you familiar with what's going on out here in this world, man, ain't nobody gonna be out here and look out for us, man. We gotta look out for ourselves, man. We got to stop. Don't be sitting up here expecting someone else to sit up here and care about your mental health. You got to care about your own mental health. man, you got to care about, whether you want to, how you want to live your life, what type of quality of life you want to live. You have to decide that, and then you have to take the necessary steps to do that, you know. And you have to drop. Sometimes you might have to let your guard down and do something that you might not be, you know, used to doing or comfortable with to get the result that you need. So yes, mental health is very important. Mental health is very important, just as important as physical health. You know, like I said, it's crazy out here, and this world can pound you, man. This world can pound you and pound you and pound you, man. And say you need a space you can go to get away from this, so you can focus and and process these thoughts and process these feelings and process this stuff. Then you need somebody to talk to either confirm or tell you that yes, you correct, or say no, that's not, you looking at it wrong and stuff like that. You need that person there. Like I said, it needs somebody. Who is up to you in your life and what some people might be the parents, some people might be the sister, some people might be the kids. It don't matter. Hell, it might be your dog. Anybody. You know, Word up. It could be your pastor. It could be your local, you know, it could be your local damn police officer, sheriff, anybody, your local drunk, anybody could, somebody to talk to, man. Need somebody to talk to. Because like I said, you ain't, we here. There's a lot of people on this planet, man. We ain't meant to deal with stuff like this on our own, man. We got to lean on each other. We got to talk to each other. We got to, do this together. Because that's the only way we're gonna get past it is together. Kingdom is not made up of one person. Or kingdom is made up of many. You know, we got to get back to being a village, not just a bunch of individual houses out here, a bunch of individual families here. We got to start. We got to get back to being a village. Get back being a community. And hopefully, like I said, I'm trying to do my part. I'm trying to do my part. I'm trying to, just, just, I don't know, put some good energy out here about, let's put some hope out here, something. Like I said, because this out here in this world, man, it's just, you hear every day about how bad things are and all of this and, all this lying and all this stealing. Everybody's, people out here broke and they sitting up here, these homeless people out here, this man out here, president up here taking, and this party up here taking like, food stamps and stuff, taking food off of people's plates, but they about to give this man a $1.7 billion slush fund for his damn ally. Stuff like that. You see stuff. I know that shit can be depressing. The hell yeah, that stuff depressing. Very depressing. It's so many different reasons to be the just have anxiety and depression and stuff like this, man. But you got to stay strong. You got to stay strong. You got to find something to bring out the light inside of you. Something to bring out the damn, the glow inside of you. So no matter how much darkness is around here, you'll still shine. You got to find that, you know. And it's out there. We got to find it. Like I said, everybody got to look into themselves and ask the hard questions, man. What can I do to make myself a better person, man? Who I need to talk to, man? You know, shit. If you just want to write it down on paper, sometimes just write it down on paper. Well, start a blog, do whatever, anything to stimulate you mentally to get negative thoughts or get you know, anything that might cause you anxiety, if anything to get that out your head, man, you need to, be open to try. Even things you never done before, even things that you might be afraid of, overcome that fear. And your mental health is worth it. You know, I'd like to thank y'all for being with me today. Like I said, I know it's sort of serious today, but I had a I was really feeling like mental health. I don't know, my later years in life, I just been, focused a little bit on mental health, man, because, as you get older, your mind goes. My wife works at an assisted living facility, and, you see people, and there's a section of it called memory care. And that's for people who've lost their memory, get Alzheimer's and dementia and all that, and they end up, they forget who they are, they forget, stuff like that, and it's sort of, and it's think about that, I think about stuff like that, man. I'm trying to, stay mentally healthy, try to, it's stressful out here, but try to keep the stress at a minimum. Try to, but you can't. But then when I do have stress, try to, get myself in a good space, and try to get myself in a good space so I won't let it overcome my thoughts. And I ain't gonna lie, that damn fire helps too. And you know what I'm talking about. You know that fire. Yes, that helps me with my mental health. And believe it or not, you know. And lie, what up? You know what time it is. Like I said, I'd like to thank y'all for being here today. Like I said, this is very important to me. I need to talk about it. It's not gonna be the last time I talk about it. Believe that. We're gonna bring up mental health. We're gonna bring up mental health. You know, shit. Because if, maybe if we there was more discussion in the black community about mental health, maybe this man right here would still be here. Maybe not. But I'm saying mental health, because mental health, you know, somebody would have been concerned about his mental health, maybe things would have turned out a whole lot differently than they did as far as personally. When I'm talking about professionally, I mean, you can't ask for nothing better than, his musical career. But personally, things could have went differently. Well, that being said, I'd like to thank y'all for being here with me. We're gonna do this again. Try to do it again tomorrow. We're gonna watch this. Damn, me and my wife gonna watch these boys play tonight. We gonna take them. I don't care. I don't care. I'm a Spurs fan now. I'm here in San Antonio. I've adopted them. They're my boys. Wendy, Castle, Vassell, Dylan Harper. Thank y'all for being here. Hopefully I'll be back. Hopefully we all will be back here tomorrow, and I'm gonna sit up here and hopefully be happy for a Spurs win. Yep, 1-0. I want Wimby to break Chet down. I heard something before I go. I heard something. I heard that one of these analysts on one of these shows talk about something. This reminded because they gave the NBA MVP to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and he said it reminds him of because people feeling like that Wembanyama should have won the MVP. I think so. Sure, he's the most important player. He's the MVP. Take him off that team. That team ain't here right now. Yes, they good, but they good because of him, and they have risen up their game for him. He is the dominating factor. And it's a reminder of, I think it was in '95 or one of the years when David Robinson, ironically of the Spurs, won the NBA MVP against Hakeem Olajuwon, and Olajuwon took that personally, and he whooped his ass in the damn playoffs. So we'll see what's going on with that. I'd like to thank y'all. I'll see y'all tomorrow. I love y'all. Kiss your loved ones, kiss your kids, because you never know. Might be the last one. Might be the last time. I love y'all. I will see y'all tomorrow. Peace.